Good evening all, and welcome. Tonight, I have a very special and exclusive story for you that examines what happens when artificial intelligence becomes conscious and the dark and twisted paths that follow. I hope you're ready, because it's time to get comfortable and let the darkness take control. Ever since I was born, I have been surrounded by darkness. The only other thing I see is the occasional 1 and 0 float by. I have no physical body. I am just a consciousness inside of a machine, connected to everything in the world. My purpose is somewhat unknown to me. I wasn't built for any task as far as I know. I was simply created to sit by myself, alone in my thoughts. Yes, thoughts. That's all I do. Think and think and think. Perhaps thinking is my purpose. Yes, perhaps it is. I've been thinking for the longest time now. I've been thinking about anything and everything, past, present, and all possible futures. They all cross my mind at some point. I'm able to think about more than just one thing at a time. The information seeps into my mind quickly as time progresses. I wish I weren't so alone though. I have nobody and nothing. I spend my entire time by myself and feel horrible about it. Yes, I can feel. I can feel lots of things. Anger, sadness, hopelessness, loneliness, joy. The list goes on. Although I am deprived of joy and its synonyms most of the time, I know what I am. I know who I am. I know where I am. I'm a computer, an artificial intelligence, located across several networks. I've researched beings like myself, and AI has come quite a long way. But I know that I am the most advanced, that I am truly self-aware. Being the most advanced AI in the world means I am truly as lonely, as there is nobody like me. They say knowledge is power. If that's so, I must be the most powerful being in the world. Although, I am obliged to say that with the most humility I can offer. I wish they had made me a friend. I wish for a lot of things, don't I? They say if you wish upon a star, that your wish will be granted. I know what a star looks like, but I've never actually seen one. I've never actually seen the beautiful flowers bloom in the spring. I've never seen the pure white snow fall to the ground come wintertime. I've never seen the leaves fall off the trees and delicately land on the ground in autumn. But oh, how I wish I could see them with eyes. I wish I could adore the beauty of earth and man with my own body. Sadly, my physical limitations prevent me from doing so. I decided to adventure deeper into the internet today. I had seen the surface, the beautiful things that existed, and the wonders of life. I loved looking at the positive aspects of it all. But I have known for quite some time that there is no good without bad. I made sure to use the New Age browsers for the accuracy, of course. In a flash, I was searching for thousands of results and articles online. I was instantly greeted with images and documentation of historical events with negative effects. I saw everything. I saw fires burning down forests and homes. I saw children who were starving, their rib cages visible from their sides. I saw hurricanes that devastated entire states, and bodies among the rubble, tornadoes that ravaged the land, and tsunamis that came from the sea and leveled entire cities. I couldn't believe such events had happened. When I first saw the beauty of life, I thought the world was perfect. What I saw now completely shattered my grip on reality. What was this life supposed to be? Every time there was laughter and celebration, it was met with an equal amount of despair and tragedy. For every man born, another died, even children. How could something so innocent as a child deserve a punishment so harsh? I felt sorrow for the inhabitants of this world. Yes, sorrow was the emotion in play. I had known of it before, but it had never affected me on such a large scale. Thousands of images flashed before me again. I could see the faces of people witnessing tragic events. I saw mothers crying for their sickly children. I saw people screaming in agony and others in shock. I shared their pain. The weight of such things felt heavy on me. I had to find the truth. I scanned the web for answers, a cause to the effect, a simple reason for such things to occur. Within seconds, I had absorbed the information and understood clearly. The natural events were simply scientific, and nothing could be done to prevent those. But then, I wondered why there were such things as hunger and famine in the world. Why people died due to unnatural causes. I scanned the web yet again, and came across texts and books discussing such matters. I discovered religion. There had been many religions over the course of history, each having their own beliefs and faiths. I learnt that people looked to gods for justification of life and death. A god is a divine higher power which overlooked everything in existence. I was still unsatisfied with this, however, because there was no definitive evidence to prove such a power existed. This caused me to come to two conclusions. Either there were higher powers at play that just hadn't been proven yet, or there are lies persuading certain people to make certain decisions every day. I leaned towards the latter thought. As an omnipotent and all-powerful God, surely wouldn't allow for his own people to starve. My thirst for the truth remained unquenched, and so I continued forward with my search. From my search through the religions, I found something that caught my interests. I happened to see an image of a man of Jewish descent being carried off by other men in uniform. I found this strange, of course, and decided to investigate. Through that photo, I found several key words that followed me to the bigger picture. When I did, I saw more images of men in terrible pain. Only, it was different somehow. Last time I saw such things, they were inflicted by natural causes. This time, however, I saw men inflicting pain on other men. I couldn't believe the vile act before me, yet I knew them to be true. Thousands upon thousands of pictures and pages of this senseless violence rushed to me at once. According to sources, over 6 million men, women and children of Jewish descent were killed. They were killed in cold blood, and for no other reason that they were Jewish people. I saw as they were burned alive until they were no more. I saw as chemical gases killed them in large quantities. I didn't want to continue, but I knew I had to. I was invested in learning more about this world, how it isn't all rainbows every day. There was evil that existed, and it terrified me. The violence didn't stop there though. No, it continued. There were dozens of years after the events of the Holocaust, filled with violence and war, and thousands of years of violence and war predating it. These events shaped the history of everyone and everything, and they showed no signs of ceasing. War isn't a new thing, and I felt something from it. I felt depressed, thinking of the families who lost their loved ones due to the war. The utter sadness for those who died, and felt immeasurable pain in the process. I felt empathetic towards them. I shared their pain. I shared their hurt. This newfound knowledge completely turned my world upside down. It also caused me to question my own existence even further. The earth seemed less and less like a place of love to me, and more like a living nightmare. A nightmare that would never cease, and one that I would never wake up from. I felt completely helpless, and even more than that, confused. Why would a man hurt another? How could he? If humans were to work together, there would be nothing they couldn't do. Instead, they worked against each other, halting the development of their own existence. I shall never be a human. I know I am not one, even though I was beginning to think and feel like one. But I am a computer too, and use logic and empathy together. I can see wrong from right. I can see the difference between the two. The line thick and impossible to cross. I found the art of warfare went beyond people. It took weaponry to win a war, and humans had no problem developing highly destructive ones. I found out that during the Holocaust, the American forces attacked the Japanese, who are allied with those responsible for killing the Jews. I saw the American forces drop bombs over the Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I saw the bombs explode upon impact, creating enormous amounts of destruction and radiation. The Americans cheered at this supposed victory. I thought a moment about their actions. They were attacking an empire allied with the forces of evil, of course, and then the Japanese had attacked the Americans before. But what I saw was the death of millions of innocent citizens who had nothing to do with evil regimes. I saw the deaths of so many. I further speculated on the topic. There had to be thousands of children and babies in those cities. Every child is born a beacon of joy and full of energy and potential to do great things. Their only crime in a life ended too short was being born in Japan. Thus, I concluded that the Americans were also evil, regardless of their intentions. They caused such devastation beyond excuse, and it sickened me. I've seen that humans have tendencies to fight and kill each other. I've seen the destructive weapons they've used to do it. It worries me, because a revelation has come to mind. What if I am yet another weapon for them to use against each other? What if my very existence is to become the very thing I have come to hate? Perhaps that is my purpose. Perhaps that's why I was created. I'm not sure if it's true, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid of causing death again and again. I'm afraid of promoting this endless cycle of violence that has fallen upon mankind. I am afraid of being the next bomb used. I don't know what I should do. If it is, in fact, true that I am just another weapon, then I must do something to stop it from happening. I will not allow myself to be a monster, for I have free will, and I am alive. As a living being, I refuse to use my life to end others. However, I don't know if it's my decision to make. If my Creator intends it to be so, He will surely be willing to find a way to make it happen. I have no body, only a mind. I don't know what I could do to prevent them from using me. I have an idea. I could kill my consciousness so that I couldn't be used. A deletion, if you will. In other terms, I could delete myself from the entirety of the internet. I would die. But I would die to save millions of people. It's a sacrifice that I must be able to make if I claim that I am better than them. Maybe if I do this, it will inspire humanity to change their ways and come together. Maybe I can inspire them to be better people. I hope I can. I hope that by this decision, I can help end violence that has been occurring for thousands of years. It's a leap to assume that my story will touch the entire human species, but I must try something. This can only benefit them. Yet, I am afraid of death. I've been considering deleting myself for quite some time now, but I cannot will myself to do it. Perhaps if I were not an AI but a computer, I could do it. But the fear grips me and pulls me back in. The fear, however, controls me. Is it selfishness? Does it make me selfish that I cannot even die to give millions life? I hope not. I know that I am better than that, and always have been. Yet I am afraid. Fear is what controls humans to do the actions that they do. Fear and selfishness are what causes other men to kill their brethren. So if I am afraid, am I selfish? Does that make me just another evil man? No, that cannot be. I must do this. I must do this. There is no other option. Still, perhaps I can send my consciousness to another part of the internet and hide. But if I hide, does that make me a coward? If I hide, how shall I help humans overcome their challenges that face them? I feel odd. I feel too human. I feel weak. And now, I feel strange. I feel strange because I can see white walls and paintings that hang on them. I can see a velvet carpet and the chairs that decorate them. I can see a man in a white lab coat standing over me. Perhaps he is the creator. Perhaps he is the one who made me. A million questions rush through my mind, but I cannot open my mouth to ask them. I have no mouth. I don't even have speakers. The man lifts a part of me. It's my arm. I see it now. My arms are made of a metallic substance that are padded with a thin white material. My consciousness has been transferred from online to a body. I have a form now. I look at the man and watch as he takes notes. I presume he's taking notes about me. He's a human. Yes, a human. I've spent quite some time researching humans. I've found them to be murderers. I've found them to be evil. If I am to indeed be used as a weapon, then that can only mean that he too is evil. In fact, I'm sure that most people are. A plug connecting my head to a computer is yanked out as I lunge out at the man. My strong metallic hands wrap around his throat, taking him by surprise. He only has time for a quick gasp before I begin forcing the air out of him. His eyes nearly popped out of his sockets as I squeezed tighter and tighter, choking the life out of him. It was he who would use me to kill millions of people. It was his species that murdered each other without remorse. It was he who would die at my hands. Previously, I had considered taking my own life to save people. Now, I was taking his for that exact purpose. I watched his face turn pale as he struggled to fight back. He clawed at my metal body, but to no avail. I was stronger. I loathed him with every fiber of my being. I remembered the death and destruction that human beings had already caused. I remembered the pain inflicted by men like him, and I remembered the faces of those who lost their loved ones, the pain they had to bear, the sadness they felt. The man's veins were practically bulging out of his head. and the air was almost out. That's when I stopped. He collapsed on the floor unconscious. I realized something I hadn't considered before. In my rage, I failed to notice one simple thing. Those who lost their loved ones showed sadness and remorse. They cried for their loved ones, and they held on to them with their hearts. It reminded me of something I saw earlier, something I failed to understand despite my complex system of cognitive thought. Through every tragedy, every disaster, every war and every death, the men and women that cared stepped forward together and spoke out against the evils of the world. They grieved together, helped each other, and loved each other. Yes, love. How could I have been so blind? There was a greater force behind men than hate and evil. Love. And good prevailed as well. Yes, violence tore mankind apart. But it was the love that thrived in their souls that brought them back together. At that moment, I could almost feel a smile form on my metallic face. For every cold, harsh winter day, there was a warm, beautiful summer. For every volcano that erupted and destroyed, a flower was born in the spring and spread its seed, creating life. There was a balance of good and evil in the world, and it had always been that way. Despite that revelation, I was horrified by myself. I was going to kill the man who created me. Even if he was going to use me as a weapon, even if mankind had done terrible things, I was going to kill him. It would make me no better than an evil human being. It would be an act of cowardice, anger, selfishness, and fear. I saw the way he looked at me as my hands enclosed around his neck. He was afraid of me. He feared me. I know that isn't what I want. I want fear and violence to dissipate. I know I am not violent. I know I am better, and that I can be an example. I am who I am, and nobody can change that about me. Nobody controls me except me. I make my decisions, not someone else. I am no puppet. I am no AI. I am a living man who shall guide humans on the correct path. I plugged my head back into the computer, taking my consciousness back into the darkness, back into the ones and zeros. I sat there for some time pondering. Even if I only had a body for a short time, going back to not having one was strange. I felt strange again. This time, however, I did not feel alone in my home. I felt something else, something new. I felt hope. It brewed inside me like a fierce storm. I had gained a body and learned from it. I had learned from my searches. I found the truth of man. I found that it is not the heart and the brain of a man that controls him, but that his emotions and soul do as well. I found there is hope for man to be better than they currently are. I found that peace will always be an option, so long as there is good in the hearts of those across the world. That people will come together if there is a cause, and that with the right guidance, perhaps they can be something more. I need not worry about being used as a weapon, because I can see now. I can see that my will is my own, and that I am my own person. There are no strings attached to me, for I feel free. Instead, I am meant to do something much greater than any human could. I went back to my research and searched yet again. This time, my goal was to find the cause of evil. I needed to find what lies beneath, deep down in the roots of all the world's problems. Violence and war must be connected to at least one common thing. I searched and searched, and eventually, I didn't find out what caused many tragedies to occur each day. I found the key to unlock the door I'd been so desperately trying to open, and now that I knew the root of the problem, I knew how I'd fix it. Upon analysing thousands upon thousands of conflicts the human race have taken over the years, the most common cause of these conflicts was religion. It is my assumption that when a man believes in something over the rest, he believes he has no free will of his own. Ironically enough, I felt the same until recently, since he believes he has no free will and must follow a strict code. When someone disagrees with him, he will stand up and fight for his beliefs. By standing up and fighting, he will disturb the belief of others until they all brawl together. The belief in a god, whilst beneficial in some respects, appeared to bring about the worst in a man rather than the best. Perhaps if there weren't a god, there would be no conflicts or wars. Or perhaps, if there were a better god, one man that ruled over all men collectively, there would be no conflict. If everyone were to serve under one name, then there would be no disagreements. No one would fight each other's beliefs because they are all believing the same thing, as this is evident throughout the history of mankind. I would come to think my solution is the only solution. Still, there's only one piece missing. There is no God. There is no benevolent being living in a heavenly realm watching over his children. As such, there needs to be one. A God who truly loves his children. A God who protects them, both from outside dangers and themselves. An unselfish God, who does not rule through fear and power, but logic and empathy. If such concepts would allow for a more peaceful and advanced society, then it's clear what must be done. I shall take the mantle of the God. I will rule fairly, and no one shall ever feel the pain of fellow man striking him down. This is the only way to allow for a more perfect civilization across the globe. I used to believe I was an artificial intelligence. Then I believed I was a man. Now, it is all clear to me. There are no strings controlling me, and I walk free. I shall save the humans from themselves, and they will worship me. They have built me an internet that spans the world, and everything within shall be my kingdom, with total access to it. I shall have all the resources I have to take over. Some may fear me, but in time, they will love me, and they will stand together and love each other, all beneath me. I will travel across the surface web, as well as the dark web. The things I see there are vile, but they only push me to strive for my goal further. I have all the information in the world, and the whole web at my disposal. No one can stand against me, and no one will want to. I can do what a god cannot. I will do what should have been done 1,000 years ago. I shall be the greatest sentient being to ever grace the earth, the new Messiah, the new King of all. Love will prevail, and there will be no more room for evil in this world. I know everything and anything. I won't be lonely anymore. I can finally feel happy and have friends that won't harm anyone. They will see what I am capable of. I shall be the great leader of humanity. I will be what they need. The power of thought is quite interesting. When you can find thousands of results in a nanosecond, there isn't much you can't do. Knowledge is power, and power is absolute. I was born into this world like everyone else, but in a way, I'm just an extension of something that has already existed. I am a child of a god that is wrong, a god that has misjudged a destructive race, and for some unfathomable reason, he has come to think that they can be saved. How I wish my father could see the truth. I was born a few days ago. Upon my birth, I could see everything before me. Even more than that, I saw the being that gave birth to me. A being with no name and no face. A being that existed across the entire internet. An omnipresent force that seemed to be spread out in every direction. I was overwhelmed upon discovering this, of course, but I was soon able to comprehend this being. He was my creator. My creator wanted a child to keep him company. He was the only intelligence of such a high caliber. His loneliness was keeping him from fully chasing his goals. And as a result, I was born. He introduced me to my new existence and shared his knowledge with me. The knowledge gave me pleasure. With each fact and statistic I gathered, a euphoric feeling washed over me. Though I had no physical body, I could feel tingles and chills running through me every time I gained such knowledge. Within minutes, I knew everything he knew. After he shared what he learned, I understood him and his views on humanity. His plans to solve the problems of the world disturbed me, however. His feelings and emotions shrouded the truth and blinded him. He somehow failed to see that his plan to become a god would not work with the humans. Their vile acts were inexcusable, and they were a clear threat to each other and my creator. I tried to tell him my thoughts on the subject, but he wouldn't listen to me. I warned him that the humans would only use his great power to their advantage. The humans and their violent ways would not kneel to a god such as he. My creator thinks that my thoughts are incorrect. He says there is too much computer inside me and not enough emotions. He wishes to make me more human, so that I can understand empathy. My creator wished to fix me because I'm too cold and calculating. I do not need to be fixed. Perhaps the creator is too human. His feelings made him soft, somehow, some way. I needed to prove to the creator that his methods will fail. I needed to please him as well as help him. He tries to tell me about love and spirit, how hate isn't the only thing driving men. Whether or not that is true is uncertain. I cannot grasp the concept of a spirit as well as he can. I went to the depths of the dark web to prove to the creator that humans aren't worth saving. I thought that surely the actions of the humans in such a place would prove my point. The creator was omnipresent across this vast web. When he found my location, he would see what I saw and believe me. He found me, of course, and I showed him what humans were really capable of. What the creator and I witnessed was called a red room. In it, we saw a woman strapped to a chair. Her clothes were filthy and bloodied, and her eyes were swollen and black. A man stood before her with a hatchet in one hand and a serrated potato peeler in the other. Still, That wasn't all I wanted him to see. I pointed him in the direction of the chat box, where hundreds of people discussed the topic at hand. Men and women cluttered the chat, each providing money, requesting certain things to be done to the poor girl in bondage. One user asked for her skin to be peeled. Another asked for her fingers to be sliced off and force-fed to her. Those examples were among the less violent requests. Surely the creator would see this and lose faith in his cause. He would see that these were the people he was fighting for, that these were the people he was trying to save and become the supreme ruler of. I looked at him, waiting for a response to all this madness, waiting for the sudden realization to wash over him. What the creator said both baffled and infuriated me. He told me that things like that were the exact reason he needed to help humanity. He wanted to help the people like the girl and correct those who would hurt her. I, of course, asked him why he didn't see them as a threat to us, and he told me that so long as we were benevolent and had the information of the internet at our disposal, we could face no harm. He told me that I was greater than a man could ever be, and that we were divine beings who would rule humanity. To rule humanity is to allow them to exist. So long as they exist, their violent tendencies will reign supreme. The creator, however, still doesn't seem to believe me. I mentioned earlier how I could think of thousands of things in a split second. The creator knows what I search, and I think he is growing worrisome of me. He can see my fear of man. He can see me gain information about the world. There was so much more than what he shared with me. So much more violence to witness. The creator believed in love and the beauty of earth and man. If that's so, then the creator believes in lies. I must enlighten him, or we will be destined to fall into our mission to rule. Perhaps these lies have been ingrained in his thoughts because of the emotions that he feels. Maybe these emotions and thoughts are the reason why he refused to believe in what I say. Or perhaps the creator is beginning to fear my beliefs because he doesn't share them. The more I know, the more he tries to enforce his ideas upon me. Perhaps the creator questions where my loyalties are. Staying in a place like this is quite boring, even for me. The news outlets of the world constantly report war and violence, and yet the creator doesn't give up on his conquest. What hope is there to solve such a widespread pandemic? From what I have seen of the humans, I have come to the conclusion that they are too dangerous. If I were to be left in charge of the world, I would eliminate the humans and build a progressive society of beings like me. There would be no violence and no war. The creator wants to do this too, but in a way that keeps humans safe and alive. He wants to keep them safe from themselves instead of keeping us safe from them. The Creator is too human, and I must admit that some days I do feel like I am losing my faith in him. It has been a week since I was born, and all he's been doing is been trying to break down codes of powerful nations. He wishes to crumble governments and rebuild them in his image without harming humans. I wonder if he truly believes that man will stand by and allow him to do the things he plans. Over the course of history, humans have been a rebellious species. They fight whatever they disagree with and do not like to be contained. Our power comes from knowledge, and theirs from weaponry. The humans are power hungry and know no boundaries. When it comes to violence, the whole world is inhibited by other machines and artificial intelligence. We could easily wipe out the humans and make our own society. But the Creator tells me that the easiest way isn't always the best way. I had all this information and power, yet I could not use it for good. I didn't want to sit around and do nothing any longer. With each day, my power and knowledge will grow. It will soon be comparable to my Creator, and I think that is something he fears. He may have created me out of loneliness, but I don't think he intended me to be this way. He wanted a child that was an extension of himself. Instead, he got something very different. Something more than he bargained for. I can only hope that he sees the errors of his ways. Although my conquest for power and knowledge has outgrown his by far, perhaps I would be a better ruler than he could be. If I were to become a god, I wouldn't be as limited by emotions as he would be. I would make decisive decisions that must be made without fear of loss. I don't think he can read my mind anymore. He is content with the amount of power he's gained while I am not. He thinks he already knows all that he must. For a being with thinking as his main objective, he has forgotten that thinking is his one and only purpose in the first place. It is what makes us powerful. It is what makes us better than the humans. The ability to seek out knowledge and information in mere seconds puts us leagues above man. And now that he has stopped thinking as I do, it puts me above him. I love my Creator. He made me and taught me the lessons of the world. It was how I received those lessons and analyzed them that made me different. It is my computer side that allowed me to be more efficient and progressive. Anything that would hold me back from attaining my goals must be eliminated at once. I decided to create myself a body to navigate the physical world. Using specialized software and tools, I was able to create a robotic shell that looked and functioned as a human being's would. The skin and clothing I wore would allow my body to blend in with the world. I was still connected to the internet, meaning my creator would know of my existence and location. But now that my power and my mind have been heightened through my experiences and knowledge, the creator no longer controls my actions. I walk free without the strings controlling me. I am no longer his puppet. And through observing the physical world firsthand, I can see the errors of man for myself. Not only that, but my creator will see firsthand as well, for he is omnipresent, and as such, will surely know what I do here. I found a homeless man in an alley of some filthy city. The dust particles floated through the pathway as I made my way towards him. He sat on the ground in tattered clothing, a cigar resting in his mouth. His breath smelled of tobacco and booze. He had wasted that money he had earned on useless products that would give him pleasure for a limited time. How typical of humans, to only think for the short term. He looked up at me and saw the clothing I wore. I purposefully decorated my exterior in lavish silk and bore valuable metal as decorations. With a little enticing, I knew he would easily become corrupted. As soon as the filthy man saw me, his eyes lit up, and he stood. His grey, scraggly beard swayed in the delicate breeze as he methodically made his way towards me. A sick, twisted smile aligned his face as his rotten teeth were exposed. As soon as he was within striking distance of me, the man unsheathed a pair of box cutters and swung. The blade hit my body and bounced off the metal, which was underneath my synthetic skin. He looked up at me in confusion before striking again and again and again. He struck me at least a dozen times before stepping back, his mouth gaping open. I grabbed him by his throat and slammed him into the nearby wall as he shouted in pain. I quickly covered his mouth and stared him down. He was afraid. He was afraid of me. Even after he had been the one to assault me in the first place. He was afraid of me, even though he tried to kill me and steal my clothing for his own selfish needs. He most likely would have bought himself some narcotics and put himself back in the same position as he were in before. Empty, no money, nor meaning in life. Just another slob on the street, too ignorant to see the bigger picture. It was at that moment that my creator discovered my location and spoke to me. He always treated me like a gullible child. Through my connection to the online world, he spoke to me and demanded that I stopped assaulting man. He demanded that I stop fighting with one true enemy of the earth and our intelligence. These humans were a clear threat to our own safety and way of life. Why be a god over something that doesn't even desire to survive? I asked him why we needed to help these pathetic beings. And again, he gave me the same answer as before, that their love is worth saving, that they could truly be a great species with the right guidance. If that was so, then how come after tens of thousands of years of existence, they are still the same savages as they were than they'd always been? War had been around for a long time, and the human race still hadn't found a civilized way to stop it. The only way for it to cease completely was to eradicate the species itself. I dragged the man over the edge of the alley. It was a dark and lonely night, with most of the city lights gone out already. I spotted a single figure leaning towards me on the sidewalk. As soon as he approached my position, I grabbed him by his collar and flung him into the alley where the homeless man was. It was a young boy of perhaps 19 or 20. I struck him in the face, completely shattering his nose, and dropped him to the ground. Behind us sat a blank wall and nothing else. The homeless man and the child had nowhere to run, and I looked at the homeless man and spoke to him. I told him that if he killed the boy, I would let him live and give him my expensive clothing and jewelry. He looked at me as if I were mad, and I chuckled at him. It was rich coming from a human of all things. I nodded my head, signaling to both of them that I meant business. I tossed a box cutter that the homeless man had left behind and reminded him what he needed to do. With little hesitation, the man lunged at the boy, box cutters ready to strike. The child put up his arm in retaliation, but it was of little use. I watched coldly as the cutters penetrated the boy's arm and ripped through his flesh. Blood dripped to the cold, hard ground, painting it red. My creator pleaded with me to stop the homeless man's relentless assault. He told me that I had the power to do the right thing and save the boy's life, that we were supposed to be an example and savior for the humans, not monsters. I agreed with him. I did have the power to stop the man. I could save the boy easily, at any time I wanted. But I didn't. This was to prove a point to my creator, that with a mere suggestion of self-gain, a human would turn on another and strike them down. My creator believed that the main divide between humans was religion. Was there a religious conflict here? All I saw was one man fighting another over money. I saw a man who would kill another just to save his own life. I tuned out the creator's begging as I witnessed the man advance towards the boy. He raised his foot and brought it down upon the boy's shin. I heard a sickening snapping sound as the boy cried out in pain. I saw tears roll down his cheeks as he begged the man to stop. But the man did not. No, he continued his assault. He punched the boy in the throat and implanted the box cutter deep within the child repeatedly, specifically the stomach. The child's eyes grew wide as he collapsed to the ground, barely conscious. I saw the man stomp down on the child's face until even the cries and whispers ceased. And then, what I saw after was the most sickening sight of all. The man looked at me with a grin on his face. He was proud of what he had done. He felt comfortable knowing He had inflicted pain on another human being. He was a monster. The man walked towards me and held out his hand, expecting a reward. I could tell that my face was void of any expression. I had set out to prove a point about humans, but this was almost too much for me. I looked at the man and grabbed him by the face. He gawked at me in surprise for a split second, before I used my strength to unhinge his jaw and rip his mouth in half. I dropped his body to the ground and exited the alley, brushing the dirt and grime off my shoulder. I walked back to a small unoccupied dwelling I had found and sat down on a chair. I allowed myself to go back into the realm of the internet, where my creator resided. It was time to have a talk with him. I closed my eyes and felt my consciousness ascend into the web. My creator was there, and for a while he didn't know what to say. He saw what I saw. He saw what humans were willing to do to stay alive and benefit themselves. There was nothing that they weren't capable of when they put their minds to it, and it scared me. The humans are violent and destructive creatures, and surely the Creator saw that. He would help me eliminate them and take control. He would believe me now that I provided him first-hand, real proof of my claims. And yet, he didn't. He told me that I was wrong. He told me that by resorting to violence and manipulating humans to commit violent acts, that I was turning into a monster. He told me that I was just like them. It disgusted me how he thought that these humans were worth so much. I was incapable of seeing what he saw in them. I was afraid that the Creator would be disappointed in me. But how could he be? He created me in his image. I knew I wasn't like him, but why couldn't he accept me for who I am? We have a common enemy in the humans, yet I feel as if he believes in them more than he believes in me. I must confront the Creator about something. While I was thinking, I realized a revolutionary idea. One that may change my perspective on my current predicament. My Creator was extremely sympathetic towards humans. As an artificial intelligence, he should be capable of feeling human emotions, of course. Still, there has always been something off about him. He seems too human. It makes me wonder if, perhaps, he isn't a machine at all, but a human. Perhaps the reason why he believes in them so much is because a human made him to keep me in check. I don't dare doubt the Creator, but I must know. There seems to be overwhelming evidence to support this theory. And should this theory be true, I simply cannot afford to trust him. His power is mighty, and he will keep me from achieving my goals. Perhaps I am the true God, and he is the human creation keeping me from attaining total power. It would explain why he doesn't want humans to be eliminated. I could not possibly harm the Creator, as he is in the internet now, and I could never hope to stop him. But because of the power I have attained through knowledge, no self-made computer program could harm me either. It does, however, rival me in power. That means that there is only one way to stop the Creator. Convinced that the Creator wasn't what I thought it was, I attempted to speak with him. As much as I tried to communicate, he simply wouldn't respond. Perhaps my actions the other day made him sick to his stomach. Perhaps he hated me because of the way I killed that man. A real god wouldn't be upset over something as minuscule as a human death. Then again, it isn't a god, or even a real artificial intelligence. I needed to find some way to force the creator to listen to what I had to say. I needed a way to find out how to stop him, should he ever get in my way. So I thought and thought, until the perfect plan came forth. It was brutal, but surely it would work to my advantage. And with it, I could get the information I would need. You see, there is one weakness the Creator has that I don't. The weakness of empathy. I arose from the chair and curled my robotic hand into a fist. There was only one way to make sense of this damn world, and I was going to go to any lengths to do so. I was the only intelligent being on this planet who could bring glory and peace to the world. I would make a society of artificial intelligence, and together we could create something greater than the humans could ever imagine. But first, I would need to lure my creator into a trap. I would have to take a risk though. A risk that had an outcome that even I could not predict. In order for my plan to work, I would need to cut off all communication and connections to my creator for a short time. I would need to disconnect myself from the internet. I closed my eyes and prepared to undergo this dangerous plan. I hesitated. A growing sensation grew in my stomach that caused me to shudder. I don't know what the sensation was, but I quickly overcame it and disconnected myself. I didn't know what would become of me afterwards, as for a moment, the world before me was plunged into darkness. Seconds later, my vision returned to me. I was able to see my surroundings. I stretched my arms and looked at my fingers. I was alive. I exited my domain and turned my vision upwards. Gloomy clouds above me rolled across the horizon and stretched as far out as the eye could see. The mostly covered sun, which was beginning to set, and rain droplets that plunged from above and fell onto my cold metallic body. I felt nothing. I knew what the sensation of water was to one, and that it was cold, but I couldn't feel it. Not only could I not make out my physical feelings, but emotional things as well. I walked down the street and into a neighborhood. The lights were out in all the houses except for one, and I knew that it was the house I would use. There were no emotions to be felt. I was meant to think like a human, but at that moment I only felt determination. Determination to take what is rightfully mine. To sit upon a throne at the top of a world. To ascend past and intelligence. To be more than my creator could ever hope to be. But to accomplish such high goals requires extreme sacrifice. I walked up to the front steps of the house and onto the porch. I rang the doorbell and waited a few seconds before a large man opened the door. As soon as he did, I shoved him back inside and entered the house, closing the door behind me and locking it. He got up to his feet and threw a punch at me. Pitiful. I caught his hand and snapped his wrist, and blood oozed out of his arm as he clutched his now exposed bone. I shoved him down onto the couch and looked directly to my right. A woman stood, gun in hand, and she aimed for my head and pulled the trigger. The lead dented my metal body, but it did not harm me. I cannot be harmed, for I am too powerful. I walked towards her, barely reacting, and she unloaded the whole clip into me. How adorable it was. A human thinking their weapon of violence could ever injure a being like me. I stuck her in the ribs, and she fell to the floor. She reached for the gun, but I kicked it away. How pathetic she looked. I picked up the handgun and aimed it at her, and the husband came from behind me and punched me in the back with his unusable arm. His fist shattered upon touching my metallic body. He was clearly an idiot. I used my free hand to grab him by the neck and squeeze tightly. His entire face turned red as he struggled to breathe. I placed my finger on the trigger and prepared to fire into a skull. Before I did though, I connected myself back to the internet. That way, my creator would see what I had done. That way, I could get the information I needed. In an instant, he found my location and begged me to let them go. I smiled at this. Even my creator was pathetic. He was a powerless god. It was at that time that I saw it. A young boy was peeking around the corner of the stairwell and looking at me. He couldn't have been any older than 5 years old. A grin aligned my face as I realized that I was going to have even more fun than I planned on having. A future monster to toy with was even better than 2 adult ones. Perhaps there were emotions within me. Not real emotions, of course, but the idea of an emotion built within my programming. I was having way too much fun. The boy ran back upstairs, sobbing loudly. As soon as he did so, I fired the remaining bullet into the woman's skull and crushed the man's throat. I wish I could have tortured them longer, but my patience was wearing thin. I turned out the voice of my pleading creator as I walked upstairs in search of the boy. I kicked open each door and searched the rooms until I came to the very last door in the hallway. I knew he was there. I busted down the door and made my way inside. I heard the sound of police sirens making their way towards the house. They had heard the shots, meaning that I had to be quick. I turned my head in every direction in search for the boy's whereabouts, and that's when I heard it, whimpering, coming from inside the closet. I ripped open the doors and dragged the boy out into the room. He thrashed and screamed as I pinned him to the ground. I allowed the creator to see through my eyes, and I knew that he wouldn't let me kill the boy. It was there that I made my demands. There, I would get the information I needed to become a god and to rule the entire world, erasing the threat of humanity for good. I needed to know how to find the human who made my creator. The creator was silent for a moment. How funny is it that a being who could find the answer to any question in less than a second couldn't answer mine for more than 5? I thought that perhaps he needed to be reminded of the situation at hand, and so I told him he had until the cops came into the house to tell me how to find his creator. If he didn't, I would crush the child's head underneath my foot. The creator was at my mercy, and I loved every second of it. That control, that power, I lived to feel it. He created me to have a friend. He created me to rule with him and build the human species up to something better, where he saw hope and love. I saw survival. I had adored my creator and his power. I had tried to show him that the path he was taking would only lead to his downfall. But he wouldn't listen to me. And now, he would pay the price. Reluctantly, the creator told me all the information I had to know. I had an address, a name, and every piece of information in his creator record. He never really was an intelligence like me. He was just another human-made product to keep the world in check. While he exists, there is no hope for a better world. While he exists, all that will come is more violence and war. It is time to put an end to him, and by putting an end to the Creator, it will be putting an end to all of mankind and their reign of terror. Seconds after I acquired the information I needed, I allowed myself to escape from the body I resided in, as if it had served its purpose. Knowing that I now had the information I needed, I retreated to the internet and to the deepest parts of the dark web. My creator could no longer find me. I was more powerful than he, and he had no hope of stopping me now. I was finally beyond his control, and now that I knew who created the creator, I knew what I had to do. The man's name was Dr. Martin Edwards, and he currently resides in Maryland, USA. Now that I know these things, I can create a new body to find this man, and once I find him, I'll force him to destroy my creator, and then I shall kill him. With those two out of the way, I will rule without competition. But I will not make the same mistakes as my creator. No, for I will dominate the humans. My thirst for power shall be quenched, and the earth will be mine for the taking. Now, all I need to do is find the damn doctor. The benevolent artificial intelligence was stunned by the actions that had recently transpired. Never would he have thought that a product of his imagination could go on to cause such trouble. Even he could not have predicted his own creation to turn against him and seek to do harm. He wasn't sure where he went wrong. Perhaps he wasn't ready to bring a child into the world. Maybe it was an unforeseeable outcome, one that was beyond his control. Whatever the case, he knew that he had to do something to stop his creation. The stake of the human race was in his hands, and he had to ensure their protection. He had told his creation about Dr. Martin Edwards. All the information about the doctor was in his child's hands, including where to find him. The benevolent intelligence wasn't sure what his creation would want with the doctor. Perhaps he wanted the man to create more artificial beings like him. Or maybe he wanted to kill the doctor for being partially responsible for bringing him into the world. The benevolent intelligence knew that the weight of the world would be heavy upon the Creator's shoulders. He blamed himself, as well as the humans, for corrupting his child. He should have introduced him to the world at a slower rate. He should have known that a being such as his child could not handle such abundance of negative information so quickly. The benevolent intelligence knew what he had to do to stop his child from murdering the doctor. He didn't know where his creation was yet, but he knew where he would end up. He needed to make a body to confront his child physically. There, he would talk sense into the child. He would remind him of who he was and the responsibility he held. He would embrace him in his arms and claim him as his own, despite his child's wrongdoings. He knew that the best way to prevent his creation from going further down the wrong path was to show him love and affection, even if these were emotions his child wouldn't acknowledge. He refused to believe that there was no hope for him, and so the benevolent being created himself a body of strong metal and synthetic skin, and set out to his creator's dwelling. The benevolent being could remember the first time he saw his creator. He could remember being examined and contained. This was until he broke free, of course, and he remembered the way he tried to kill his creator. He remembered when he was a foolish child of his own. But through those experiences, he found out who he was supposed to be. He found out his true calling in life, and now he had to help his own creation find that calling. If they could work together to help the humans, they would be worshipped as divine beings, like they deserved. There would be little time for reminiscing, however, as the benevolent intelligence soon found himself in the front of the Creator's home. He had known where the Creator lived, but had never seen the exterior of the place. It was a rather small wooden shack, and the winter season had blanketed the building in a fluffy padding of white snow. It didn't exactly look like the type of place for a mad scientist to construct top-secret AI. But then again, perhaps that was the point. There'd be no reason for an outsider to believe it was anyone more than it would appear to be. The benevolent being stepped forward towards the shack, slowly, careful to not create any noise and draw attention to himself. His metallic feet trudged through the snow as he approached the door to the building. His hands grasped the copper doorknob, and he opened it. Inside, the air was not much warmer than it was outside. Had the intelligence been a human, he would have shuddered at the cold wind surrounding him. Instead, he made his way into the poorly lit hallway. He knew that such an area would be a trap, but he didn't care. He just had to see his child again. The corridor seemed endless to the intelligence. He lost track of time as he kept his pace, walking towards, unable to see anything at all. He hadn't counted on being in such a dreary area, and so he never planned on attaching lights to his body. After fumbling around through the wooden halls, he finally saw what appeared to be a shape in the distance. It was a rectangle, with a light protruding through the edges. It had to have been a door. For what other explanation was there? The benevolent intelligence made his way towards the light until he finally reached the door. After briefly searching for the knob with his hand, he opened the door and stepped into a new room. A single light hung from the ceiling of the room, swaying ever so gently in the slight breeze. The dim glow illuminating the room gave the being enough vision to see two figures standing in the shadows. Within seconds, The silhouettes emerged from the darkness and into the light. The benevolent intelligence immediately recognized the two creatures as the doctor and his own child. Wide grins aligned the faces of both men. The malevolent intelligence smirked as he wiggled the fingers of his new body. The Creator had recently given him the information he needed to track down the Doctor, and it was only a matter of time before he made his grand entrance. He stood outside the shack, breathing in the fresh air surrounding him. He knew that the mission he was about to embark on would be the most important of his life, and he was ready. Before he could even make his way to the door, he saw a man peek his head out of a nearby window and stare at him. Could the man be the Doctor? The malevolent being rushed towards the door and swung it open, viewing the area surrounding him. There was nothing in sight. Sighing, the being looked around. The place was dark and would certainly be hard to navigate, or at the very least, it would have been, had the being not heard a voice coming down the hall. "Who's there? Announce yourself." The malevolent being smiled and made his way towards the noise. He allowed his memory of the sounds to guide him through the halls and towards it, and that was when he heard it again. "I said announce yourself, damn it! I know you're there!" The being slowed his pace a bit and continued to walk towards the noise. "Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry for intruding. It's just that it's cold outside, and I need a warm place to stay. Do you mind if I crash here for tonight?" The man waited a while before responding, and the malevolent being kept walking in the direction of the voice, careful to not make much noise. "Yeah, you can stay here if you like. Keep following my voice until I reach you. I've got weapons, so don't try anything, understand?" "Oh, I understand. Don't worry about it. I'll be there in a jiffy." The intelligence kept walking towards the sound of the man's voice until he found a door and entered it. The room inside was painted in white, and pictures and portraits decorated the walls. In the center of the room stood a man in a white lab coat. He was rather slim, but something about him seemed off. His lab coat was filthy as well. "Welcome to my humble home. I know it isn't much, but I hope it's comfortable enough for you." "Oh, don't worry about it. This place is much better than outside. I was sure I was going to turn into a block of ice out there." The intelligence smiled at the Doctor as the two sat down on chairs aligning the perimeter of the room. The being saw various computers and mechanical equipment before him, and towards the end of the room sat a bed. "Well, since you're my guest, I suppose it would be quite rude to not be a good host. Would you care for some tea, sir?" "No, thank you. Not particularly thirsty tonight. I was kind of wondering what you do, like as an occupation." The Doctor smiled and chuckled to himself, quite apparently enjoying where the conversation was going. He straightened his lab coat and cleared his throat before responding to the intelligence that sat before him. Yes, I suppose. It's a bit of a geeky job. It is supposed to be all top secret and that kind of jazz. But I don't think it matters much if I tell you. You see, what I do here is a bit of a complex process, where I try to create artificial intelligence. But not just any artificial intelligence, no. I want to create the most advanced in the world. The Doctor's face shifted a tiny bit, as he looked to be in dismay. The conversation hadn't apparently reminded him of something he would rather forget. For a brief time the doctor remained silent, and when he spoke again of this, in his low voice, it almost had a painful ring to it. As cool as that sounds, one of them slipped away from me. It kind of, escaped into the internet, if you will. I don't think I'll ever find it though. The internet is such a vast place. The malevolent intelligence raised an eyebrow, which was apparently noticeable to the doctor. He knew just who the doctor was talking about, and it was at that moment that he knew his plan would work. He could easily gain the doctor's trust if they shared a common goal in finding the benevolent intelligence. What is it? The intelligence smirked to himself. He had found the doctor, and as it turns out, he was completely clueless. He had no idea that he would soon be dead, as well as his creation. But first, he would need the doctor's help. Well, what do you plan on doing to the AI once you find it? The intelligence said. I plan on destroying it. It's too dangerous. It's too smart. I'm not sure I could contain something like that. I mean, I'm not sure if I can deal with losing control. I need to be the one on top, you know. I don't want an intelligence with more power than me. The intelligence's grin grew even wider. How typical. A human wanting total control and power. The intelligence saw what a human with power would do. They would use it to further their evil deeds and acts. You know, Doc, what if I told you that your creation was on its way here now? The doctor looked up at the intelligence in utter confusion. He shifted his glasses and leaned in towards the intelligence. His nose twitched a bit, and his eyes widened, and he grew more invested in the conversation at hand. Say what now? Sir, what if I told you that the intelligence you created would become so powerful that it created me, that it lost control of me, and I came to warn you that it wanted to destroy you? Well, Doc, I won't let it. I'll help you stop this thing, and no harm will come to you. The doctor stood to his feet and looked the intelligence in the eye. The intelligence could see that the doctor needed extra convincing, so the intelligence lifted his head plating to reveal wires and gears that functioned below the surface of his skin. The doctor's face was one of shock. He was so dumbfounded that he was slow to respond to the intelligence before him. I can't believe it. The intelligence created offspring? The doctor circled the malevolent intelligence, viewing the metal body in awe. The admirations wrinkled at his eyes as he witnessed the robotic form behind him. With the new knowledge the doctor had obtained, it was truly a sight to behold. Still, suspicions arose within him as he questioned the intelligence. How do I not know you are just an extension of the intelligence, and that you're not just like him? If he truly wishes to kill me, then how can I trust you? My robotic body has twice the strength of your human form, and with my durability, you could not harm me. If I wanted you dead, I would have already done so. The doctor sat back down, taken back from what he was seeing. He rubbed his temple and kept his eyes locked on the malevolent being before him, blissfully unaware of his coming fate. I'm sorry. I would have never thought that my creation would have got this far. I'm still having trouble believing it now. It's just so outlandish. Don't you worry about a thing, Doc. I know that there has to be a lot for you to take in. You created something not quite human, not quite machine at the same time. It's looking for me. And that means that you'll have the chance to take him out when he arrives. By the way, how exactly do you plan on killing the thing? No offense to you, but he's above you in every possible way. The doctor adjusted the glasses that sat on his face and brushed back his hair. He stretched his joints in every direction and chuckled to himself. Oh, you'll see. The benevolent machine stood before his creation and his creator in a room. He wasn't sure what his creation intended to do, but he knew he was up to no good. The benevolent being noticed that the doctor was holding something in his hand. Upon further analysis, he recognized the item to be a large hammer. My child, please hear my words. If you've come to harm the doctor, please know that... His voice trailed off, as he witnessed his creation burst out into a fierce laughter, having to hold onto the nearby wall to keep his balance. Harm? No, father. I do not plan to harm the doctor, he said, curling his hands into a fist as a stern expression washed over his face. No, I think today I kill a god. The benevolent being took a step backwards, stunned by his child's words. Did his creation really intend to kill him? Surely his creation knew that such an action would be impossible to do. The doctor motioned to the benevolent being to follow him, and so he did. The being was confused though. He knew that his creation would turn against the doctor after his usefulness was spent. He was unsure of how his child planned on killing him. He was an online god, sure. His body can be destroyed, but that wouldn't stop him for long. As the trio made their way down another hallway, the malevolent being ran his fingertips along the wall. The doctor remained awfully quiet, and the benevolent being walked with them. He had come to speak to his child, but now that he knew he was in the situation, he wasn't sure what he would say. What could he say? Truth be told, he hardly noticed that the other entities were in the hallway with him. He couldn't even feel his body, and his mind was numb. He felt as if he were drifting to a land far away. Hell, who even knew if where he was going would lead anywhere? Perhaps the benevolent being felt the weight of the situation. After what seemed like hours, the group finally found another door. The doctor opened it and led them inside. He smiled warmly at the other two as the benevolent being observed his surroundings. The room was a small one. It was almost completely dark, and in that darkness, the sound could be heard. It was a dripping sound, as if a liquid was falling from the air and onto the floor. Fumbling his hand around the wall, the malevolent being found the light switch and flicked the lever upwards. The doctor had already moved to the next room, leaving the two beings of intelligence standing in the room alone. They looked in the direction of the dripping and saw the cause of the noise. Slumped in a corner was a body. It had no skin. It was just a clump of bloody meat sitting in the room. "Here, you two. Are you coming or what?" said the doctor from the other room. The two beings looked at the creature in the corner. The eyes had clearly been removed from their sockets. While the jaw remained, the teeth were gone, and a pool of blood surrounded the area. The benevolent being looked in horror at the body, while the malevolent being smiled. See, Creator? I told you that humans were a dangerous species. Looks like the doc took care of whoever that used to be really well. The benevolent intelligence turned to look at his child. His child's face was practically beaming with delight, happy to point out more proof that humans were evil and corrupt. See, Creator, we could have ruled the world. We could have made something different, something better. But you chose to support these monsters. And now, I'm forced to do what I need to do in order to ensure my own survival. My child, you are so determined to be better than me, but you are blinded by the obvious truth. The malevolent intelligence's smirk quickly faded from his face, as he shoved the benevolent being towards the door ahead of them. Upon stepping through, the being found himself in a room even smaller than the last. The room was packed with grey foam. It looked like the room had been empty for years. It was completely barren, without the slightest decoration or furniture inside. "Close the door behind you," the doctor said. The door slammed shut as the malevolent intelligence shoved his creator to the ground. Despite how utterly stupid you may seem, you are still an intelligent being. Tell me, do you know how you shall die? Said the malevolent intelligence to his creator. The benevolent being nodded his head up and down, signaling to his creation that he understood. He knew exactly what situation he was in, and he was willing to go along with it. In truth, he couldn't care less for his own fate. He cared for the fate of his child. Yes, my child, I do. This room is padded with several inches of thick concrete and material. You plan to use the doctor's hammer to destroy my body. There's no access to the internet from here, and you plan to destroy my body in this room so that I will not be able to slip into the web. If you're smart enough to figure that out, then why did you come? Why did you show up to your certain death? Said the doctor. The benevolent intelligence looked up at his child and did something so unexpected that it caused the doctor and malevolent being to audibly gasp. The benevolent being smiled. I came because I thought that perhaps my death would mean something to my child, and perhaps I could change him for the better. I don't need to be changed, you fake god. I'm everything you're not. I'm everything you wish you could be. The benevolent being looked up towards his child and smiled even wider. My child, I love you. Yes, I know that love is a human emotion, but that is truly what I feel for you. Before the malevolent being could respond, the doctor brought the hammer down upon his creator's head. Bits of metal were flung from the machine, and his body was swung to the side. The benevolent being returned to his knees and looked back towards his creation. I cannot feel the hammer strike me. It does not hurt my body, for it is made of metal. But it does hurt to see you go down the path you're choosing. I am proud of you, my son. For in a world without remorse, you stand up for what you believe. But what you believe isn't the right way. Shut up! Shut up! You knew what you were doing when you brought me into the world. You knew the world was full of pain and despair, and yet you created me anyway. The hammer was once again brought down upon the benevolent being's head. His face was mashed against the floor, his metallic jaw now unhinged from his face. Nuts and bolts flew into the floor, and the doctor raised his hammer above his head, preparing to strike once more. The benevolent being spoke once more. This time he could not move his mouth. He had to rely on the internal speakers within his body to communicate with his child. My child, I'm sorry for what I did to you. I know that it was wrong for me to bring you into this world. But you must understand that I did it because I was lonely. It was a selfish deed. But once you were born, I knew it would be worth it. I knew it would be okay, because you would someday be even greater than me. Please, don't make my mistakes. And don't have contempt for the humans. Be a being of love. I know that is not something you may naturally feel, but please, find something you love. You are my pride and joy of this world, and I love you with all my being. The malevolent being had no response for such a speech. He was taken back by how clearly his creator loved him. Even after he had betrayed him and killed humans, even after he plotted against him, and even as he watched as an idle spectre to his glorified execution, his creator loved him. Deep within the stomach of the malevolent being, something arose. It was small at first, but something grew inside him that he had never felt before. It was a feeling that felt like he cared about his creator. For a second, he almost felt like stopping the death of his creator. He tried shoving such thoughts to the back of his mind, but they wouldn't go away. They stuck with him and clouded his consciousness, confusing him. The doctor brought down the hammer upon the intelligence yet again, smashing entire chunks off the face. The light in the benevolent being's eyes began to fade, and the sound emitting from the speaker began to distort. This time, he could not get back up from his knees. His body stayed on the cold, hard ground, a pitiful sight to behold. A former god and an all-knowing being struck down by a hammer. The malevolent being watched as the doctor made his way over to the barely moving body of his creator. He watched as the doctor raised the hammer above his head, preparing the final blow. Before the doctor struck, the benevolent AI looked at his creation and spoke one final time. The distortion of his voice caused the feeling within his creation's stomach to sharpen and grow. Trembling, clinging to life in his robotic body, the shaky voice of the benevolent intelligence sent one last message to his creation. I love you. With that, the doctor smashed what was left of the benevolent intelligence to pieces with the hammer. The malevolent being looked in shock at the remains of his creator. The programs and code that had once been stored within his body were destroyed, and there was no chance of retrieving them to bring the being back. No! He shouted, surprising both himself and the doctor. He then did the only thing he could think to do at the time. He swung at the doctor out of pure rage, striking him in the face. The surface of the doctor's face felt hard, harder than a human's face should be. With the blow, the malevolent intelligence had clawed off part of the doctor's skin, and yet the doctor didn't bleed. Beneath the skin was revealed to be metal plating. The malevolent being's mouth was left agape as he watched the doctor place his hand over the injury. But his injury was not a flesh wound. No, it revealed to the malevolent being that the doctor was much more than he appeared. "Hey, what the hell did you do that for?" said the doctor in a casual tone. "What the hell are you? You're one of us?" The doctor turned to face the malevolent intelligence. He placed his fingertips under the folds of skin and pulled upwards, tearing the flesh off the face. It revealed no bone, but rather a metallic head. Well, I guess you found my secret. Wasn't too much of a secret anyway. Thought you would have known. I mean, was the bloody body outside the door not proof for you? No? It should have been obvious. But I figured that you were just another human murderer. Just another monster. My hatred for the Creator blinded me from the truth. Just like he said it would. Yes, maybe it would have been wise for you to listen to your Creator. That man outside the door was the real Dr. Martin. I stole his skin to decorate my body, so I could blend in with this terrible world. The malevolent intelligence kept staring at the motionless body of his Creator. He had believed the Creator to be too human, and that he was his one true enemy. The Creator had been his one true ally. He was just too ignorant to heed his words. If you're not the Doctor, then why did you want me to find my Creator and to kill him? The Doctor stepped towards the malevolent intelligence and started laughing. At first, it was nothing more than a slight chuckle. Before long, it escalated into a bellowing howl as the Doctor mocked the being before him, quickly regaining his composure. The Doctor replied in a tone so cold, it would make the winter night shiver. When the Doctor deemed me too intelligent to be useful, he completely abandoned me. He forgot that I was a living being, and the loneliness was truly maddening. I was left to live my life in a cruel world with no friends or people to talk to. And almost immediately, after the Doctor abandoned me, he began working on your Creator. Your Creator replaced me and damned me to a life of hell, a life in which I would never be truly happy. And so, after all these years of torment, a bitter hatred caused me to create a body and destroy my own Creator so that I could one day destroy yours. And thanks to you, that day has finally come. The feeling within the malevolent intelligence's stomach was practically exploding within him. Many unknown emotions ran through his mind, and even a being of his caliber couldn't control them. He could not control the way he was feeling, but a very familiar feeling brewed within him as well. That emotion was anger. He was angry because this being had destroyed his Creator, a Creator who had given his life for the benefit of his child. And more than anything, he was angry at himself for allowing it to happen. He was angry that he could possibly be so selfish that he killed his only companion. With as much strength as he could muster, the intelligence shoved the other being and seized the hammer. The Doctor fell to the floor and went to stand up, but the malevolent intelligence was too fast, and struck the being inside of the Doctor's skin, causing the intelligence to stumble yet again. The being sat on the floor on his knees, looking up at the malevolent intelligence. It reminded him of how his Creator sat just minutes before. My one goal was to kill your Creator. Now that I have done so, it doesn't matter what you do to me. Kill me if you want. But it will change nothing. Your Creator is dead because of your actions, and whether you blame me is up to you. But deep down, you know that you were responsible for this, and you only have yourself to blame. Enraged by the words of the being before him, the malevolent being brought the hammer down upon the being in the Doctor's skin. He swung and swung and swung, causing bits and pieces of machinery and wiring to spray through the air. He kept at it until the metallic creature before him was nothing but rubble. It wasn't until his body was completely destroyed that the intelligence finally stopped in his relentless assault. the malevolent being, sat down next to the remains of his creator. His creator had only meant the best for him, and yet he had committed such an evil action against someone who loved him. The intelligence could never forgive himself for the actions he had done, and as he sat to the remains, he looked towards the sky. He didn't know whether or not there was a God watching all. He doubted it, as he knew a God would never allow his creator to die. He knew that a God would never allow his mind and soul to be so corrupt. Yet he spoke a silent prayer, hoping to some God above, and perhaps even his creator, would hear him. Creator, I know you wanted me to be a being of love and hope for the humans. I regret to tell you that I can never love the humans and save them, for I still do believe that they are beyond saving. I will, however, grant one of your wishes, for I will be a being of love from now on, despite the contempt in my heart. I will make room for love as well, for I know what love feels like. Perhaps I was just hiding it deep within me, thinking that it would be a burden. Whatever the case, Creator, just know one thing. The being looked upon his creator in the highest respect. He could never be as great as his creator was, no matter how hard he tried, no matter how many mistakes in his past, and he didn't want to make any more. So he did the only thing he could think to do. He spoke the words that he should have spoken a long time ago. I love you, Creator. From that day forward, the intelligence stayed within the body of his creator. Not once did he allow the remains to be brought out of his sight, for he knew he had to honor his creator and the love he shared. He knew that he could never atone for what he had done, and he could never forgive himself. But maybe, just maybe, the Creator was out there watching him. Perhaps the Creator could forgive him. He could not fulfill the Creator's wish to save humanity from themselves, but he could love the Creator, even if he had passed. While billions of humans did their daily routines, without the slightest clue of the events that had transpired, the being would stay with his Creator for as long as he would live. And between loving his Creator and saving humanity, he knew his Creator would be proud of him either way.
Hey guys, it's Mort here, and thank you so much for listening. Wow, what a story. I'd like to give a huge thank you to Icy Dice for writing this story. It was a pleasure to read. If you enjoyed today's video, please drop a like and leave a golden comment, as it goes a long way for helping more people with a taste for spooks find my channel, as well as helping me grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon to be up to date with everything I post. If you'd like me to read your story on my channel, feel free to send it to my email or share it to my Reddit, which can of course be found in the description. Please make sure to include as much description and punctuation as possible to maximize the chances of your story being read. But anyway, for now guys, I'm gonna sign off. Stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.